I put it off now, Angela.
Hey members, it's just gone 4 o'clock. Can everybody hear me? Who's online as well?
All good.
Yep,
Chair.
can hear you, Morris.
Yeah,
Here.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, members, just like to welcome you to March's Environment Regeneration Committee. I'm going to ask Karen to read out the notice and someone's on meeting, please.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. To all members of Environment and Regeneration Committee, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of Environment and Regeneration Committee to be held in the Chamber, Guildhall and Hybrid on Wednesday, the 9th of March at 4 p.m. And I'll take the register. Alderman Morris Devaney. Alderman Devaney.
Here, Karen.
Thank you. Alderman Derek Hussey.
Hi. Here.
Thank you. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Alderman Kerrigan. Alderman David Ramsey.
Here, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor John Boyle.
Here online, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Angela Dobbins.
Here online, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Edwards.
Online as well, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Rachel Ferguson.
Here online, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
Sure, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Dan Kelly.
Sure, Karen.
Oh, okay, no problem. Councillor Emma McGinley.
Sure, online, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Rory McHugh. Here. Councillor Maeve O'Neill.
Here.
Thank you. And Councillor Brian Tierney. Councillor Tierney, are you here? Wait for that. Okay. Thank you. Chair, would you like me to do the broadcasting statement?
Yeah, if you don't mind, thanks.
Thank you. I would like to remind everyone present at this meeting in the Guildhall or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you are consenting to be filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes, and for the purposes of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. And a copy of the Council's privacy notice may be found on the Council website. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Karen. Item 4, members, is declarations of members' interest. If any member would like to declare now, they can do so, or put it in the chat box as we go through the agenda. And I see that Councillor Kerrigan is now present. So members, nobody declaring an interest, you can put it in the chat box as we go through the meeting. We'll move then to item 5, which is our presentation today. I'd like to welcome those from Ina Youth Forum who are presenting today on the feasibility study into the development of recreational facilities at Ina Country Park. And I believe it's Paul Hughes who's taking this. So Paul, you can take it away.
All right, thanks very much, first of all, to Council and the committee for having us along today to present what we believe is a very exciting project for a new rural Greenway Hub and the wider country park at Ina Loch area, and something that we've been working on now for the past year, trying to get it together and working with Council, and I suppose full Council already backed the joint motion that was submitted by Councillors Fleming, Mooney and Ferguson, and it was just felt appropriate at this stage to make the wider presentation to your committee. So hopefully we can gain some support for the project as we try and take it forward in partnership with yourselves. Next slide, please. So Ina Country Park Enterprises is a not-for-profit company formed in 2019. And as I say, it involves a work and partnership between the local community association and Ena Youth Forum, supported by the Rural Area Partnership, RAPID, and obviously Council through the Rural Tourism Programme, and sort of wider involvement from Council from the Greenways team in that as well. In essence, it's a rural tourism project that's about creating a new rural Greenway Hub. It was great to have a number of ministers and some of yourselves at the launch of the Strathvoy Greenway last week at the cutting of the sod event, and this project was sort of seek to build on that and really sort of encourage active travel and promote tourism, the four sort of strands of tourism: ecotourism, adventure tourism, cultural and rural. So in pursuit of that, Ena Country Park Enterprises, in partnership with RAPID, have recognised the considerable potential of Ena Glock and the Greenway woodland there. And I know Council just passed recently a number of new houses. I think it's 800 in total at Ballyowen. And this is a project that we feel sort of, in terms of looking at the future and future-proofing that whole site, in terms of angling, biodiversity, and the cycling and promoting active travel. That it's not just a project for the Strathboy, Maydown, Ena area, and not only the waterside, but indeed the city and district. The next slide, please. The aim of the company, as I say, Ena Country Park, is to improve and promote access, educating young people and wider residents on nature and reconnecting them with nature on the doorstep. And it sort of links in with a number of other council strategies as well, which I know Philip from RAPID is going to touch on. Rights of nature, the green infrastructure plan, and that, with all of which council is doing a good job and leading the way. And we aim to do this by conserving and protecting the local environment of Ena Glock Eastern and the surrounding area, and further develop the Greenway network and opening that area up for rural tourism and indeed water-based recreational activities in and around the two lochs, making them much more safer and accessible to as many people as we can. Next slide, please. So key to the wider vision for the country park itself is the vision of creating a new rural Greenway hub. We have secured a long-term lease for the site, which belongs to the Diocese of Derry, in terms of improving access and conservation. And we've just recently appointed Kevin Strathern, architect, who's on here today as well, and will come on a little bit later to present some of the initial concept drawings. And over the past number of months, Derry City and Strabane District Council has facilitated a number of meetings exploring the vision for Ena Country Park. And of course, we're thankful for the help and support of Teresa Bradley and Mike Savage and a number of other council officers, which are from a number of directorates within council. As it says, we've just recently secured some funding from the National Lottery Community Fund in terms of carrying out a wider feasibility study on bringing the buildings back into use, namely for a new Greenway hub at the old school site. And as it says, we've just appointed Kevin, who is working away, developing up those plans. And I think the plan is to consult further with council and the Greenways team over the next number of weeks in terms of developing a wider master plan for the site. Next slide. So although council, we're really thankful and appreciative of council already backing that substantial motion, that joint motion, as I say, put in by Councillor Fleming, Mooney and Ferguson. But we felt it was appropriate that the Environment and Regeneration Committee we would have sight of our presentation and hopefully back the project moving forward. So we're asking if council and indeed the committee would support this concept for Ena Country Park. And in particular, whilst we are confident that we can take on the redevelopment of the buildings in terms of creating that Greenway hub and looking at future funding coming down the line, the likes of the EU Peace Plus programme and the Rural Development Programme and that, what we do require council support for is assisting in designing and developing a Greenway route that will directly connect Ena Glock with the Greenway Woods area and indeed the new sort of housing estate there at Ballyowen, which is currently under construction. And also, more importantly, connect the private laneway at Ena direct to the old school site. And the reason why this is crucial to the whole project is without the Greenway link, it won't really function as a rural hub in terms of how the project's envisaged. It's very much linked into the local community planning process, and there's great local support for it. And we have begun discussions with a number of landowners. And if council could also contact the Department of Health outlining council support for the project, future Greenway development in and around the Greenway estate. The Department of Health are kind of working on their own long-term strategy for the entire Greenway site at the minute, and they've obviously worked with council in terms of taking the Strathboy Greenway forward, and hopefully that's something that council could do in terms of developing this link that's so badly needed and would make a huge difference for everyone in the city and district. We believe that the project will enhance the Strathboy Greenway and the wider Northwest Greenway network and allow people in the rural communities of Campsie, Eglinton, Claudy, Lettersondoni and further afield to actually access the Greenway network via the Greenway Hub. Kevin, KJS Architects, has prepared a concept diagram or master plan which will show the connection, and Kevin could come on to that a little bit later. And it's based on the redevelopment of the old schoolhouse and their rural hub with bus and car parking for 34 cars with community facilities. They include a multi-purpose community hall, a cafe covered with external spaces, which we envisage could be used as an outdoor classroom type thing, you know, linking young people with the environment, and actually a real practical hands-on project in terms of tackling climate change. Electrical bicycle hire, telling the story of the history and heritage. There was a plane crash there, World War II at Blackhead Moss, and our idea would be just to connect the hub, the building itself, through the moss, through the woodland, and up into Greenway. And next slide, please. So just the rural hub in terms of the terminology for the site, it's definitely not a community centre that we're looking for. It's much bigger and wider than that. It's a rural Greenway hub and all about improving access onto the local lakes and indeed the Northwest Greenway network. Particularly over the past couple of years with the pandemic and that, like a lot of beauty spots everywhere, I suppose, the numbers of people using the Loch has increased. It's become very popular for swimming, boating, fishing, but there isn't any proper car parking or changing facilities. And I know from our perspective as a youth group, taking groups down there canoeing, we're always having to set up makeshift changing areas and using gazebos and stuff, and that's part of the wider project as well to improve all that. It'll provide access to the Blackhead Moss, where the RAF Ferry Barracuda airplane crashed in August 1944, and I think there's a story to tell around the history and heritage of that site as well. And it'll provide car parking and access to the nearby Greenway Woods, which is why it's so important that we get that link between Council and Department of Health to try and secure support for the project. And it'll also provide car parking and access to the new Greenway, constructions of which has started now, and it'll provide an easy to access to the Greenway for the residents of Westlake, who in the current sort of plan and design, as born out of consultation, that was their wishes, you know, that another link may be found, and we think that this is a way of doing that as well. And it provides a destination and cafe facility for the Greenway from the city and the rural area when the Greenway network is completed. So as people make their way out from the city through the great facilities there at Sir Collins Park, you know, what are they coming out there? What is the end result? We do have a fantastic play park, obviously owned by council in the area, but we think that this is a real sort of end destination as part of the wider Greenway network. Next slide, please. In terms of project support, we have spent a number of months and a lot of time meeting and discussing the concept with local residents and landowners, particularly Mrs. Hill, who would be a prominent landowner in the area. She's in support of the project entirely and is prepared to work with ourselves and Rapid and Council to facilitate the links to and from the rural hub. Mrs. Hill is prepared to give access over her private laneway and access over any land she owns to develop this rural hub. And I know Council have sort of started those conversations already in terms of looking at that. And we're also genuinely appreciative of the continued support provided by Philip and all of his team at Rapid. And we believe that we will be, with the support of Council and Rapid moving forward, that we'll be in a position to obtain funding from a rural development source for this rural hub. And that's something that we're confident we can take forward. But as it says, we can't really pursue that, or you know, the entire project lies on Council's buy-in, creating the Greenway link, further developing the wider Greenway network. In terms of our ask, I suppose, again, is we sort of are asking Council to help arrange, design and facilitate the proposed link through the woodland area or the Blackhead Moss area, and obviously negotiating them with the landowners in and around Judges Road. just ask that the committee consider that request. Next slide. Yeah, just pass over to Philip, hopefully. Philip O'Kane from Rapid now, just to sort of talk about how this proposal and project does fit with the Fahan DEA growth plan and indeed a number of other strategies that Council are leading on and taking forward at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So, as Paul's mentioned, my name is Philip O'Kane and I'm the manager for Rapid. We're the rural support network for the council area and core-funded by council through Health and Communities and also DAERA. So we've been working with the community partners and staff while now in the project for probably about a year now, as Paul was saying, and have identified some potential upcoming funding programs for the scheme, such as the new Peace Plus programme, DAERA's Rural Business and Community Investment Fund, and also UK Shared Prosperity and Levelling Up funds. So as Paul said, but we are just looking at support from council going forward, and so within that context I've prepared a few slides showing how the project meets some of the key aims and objectives of some council strategic documents. So the first one is the Fahan DEA local growth plan. So in terms of the local growth plan, the project meets a number of objectives, including the need to develop tourism throughout the DEA, including the development and promotion of areas of outstanding natural beauty, woodlands, waterways, wetlands and heritage sites, all of which are included within the proposed Enoch Country Park project proposal. The project will also support the development of improved walking and cycling routes and countryside access. This will be achieved through the linkages between Enoch, Grantia Woods and Strathfoyle Greenway. And the project will also develop improvements at popular angling destinations. So as Paul's outlined, the group are currently working in partnership with the Honourable Irish Society in developing fishing rights and angling provision at Enoch. Next slide, please. So the project proposal also meets the objectives of the Fahan Local Growth Plan in terms of protecting the environment through the promotion of green infrastructure and promoting the conservation and sustainable management of woodlands, as we're hoping to manage Grantia Woods as a community woodland in order to link with the hub and the Greenway. And I think as Paul outlined earlier in his presentation, the project will also hopefully address some of the ongoing health and safety issues at Enoch around water safety and maybe some of the social behaviour issues around car parking and lack of changing room and issues such as that. Next slide, please. So the project also complements and adds value to Council's climate adaptation plan. So Rapid are actually involved with the development of this plan as a project partner within the Interreg 5B funded climate project, through which the actual climate adaptation plan is developed. So again, the promotion of green infrastructure and nature-based solutions is a key focus of both the climate adaptation plan and also the proposed Enoch Country Park proposal. Specifically because the project proposal of Enoch Loch contains both green and blue interconnected space, which is quite unique in terms of country park development. Next slide, please. So the Northwest Greenery plan, I suppose, is the key one. As Paul's mentioned, that linkage between the Greenway and the hub is key to making this project a success. So it'll provide the hub for access to the Strathfoyle Greenway, which is part of, I suppose, the wider Northwest Greenway plan, particularly through encouraging more people to cycle or walk as part of their daily lives. So I think Kevin from KJS Architects will discuss this aspect of the project in a bit more detail and illustrate the proposed linkages between the project and the Greenway within his project concept design. So I'll leave Kevin maybe to talk more about that. Next slide, please. So Council's green infrastructure plan. So again, as I've already mentioned, the project involves a number of green infrastructure in terms of its development. So it meets a number of objectives within Council's green infrastructure plan, particularly around health and wellbeing benefits, green and blue space development, which I've mentioned, promoting active and sustainable travel, conserving priority habitats, and raising awareness of the impacts of climate change on the local ecosystem. Next slide, please. Finally, the project also complements the ongoing work of Council within the promotion of rural tourism, particularly in terms of activity and adventure tourism, making natural assets more accessible, and the development of new tourism products in order to attract more visitors to the area. So we've been working with Council officers to develop potential new tourism projects such as this, particularly around we have a EU Interreg program Ramsat, I think as Paul mentioned, which has funded a feasibility study initially for this project. And I know Paul's also got some help from Council's tourism officers in terms of working up the project to this point. So I think that's just really a brief overview of the different strategic documents, and I'm aware that probably everyone on this call's well aware of the different council strategies. So I'll just now hand over maybe to Kevin from KGS Architects, maybe to present the initial designs for the Country Park Rural Hub project and give a sort of overview of the full concept design. All right, thank you.
Hi, sorry, my name is Kevin Strathern. I'm a local architect, and I was asked by Country Park to take a look at a feasibility study for the site, what is known as the old schoolhouse on Temple Road. I'm not sure, can we put up some of the maps, the existing proposed map?
Sorry, through you, Chair. Members, we don't have the maps.
Can I share them up with here?
You should be able to share them, Kevin, yes, if you can try there.
Not sharing now. Is that sharing
We
now?
can see that. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
This is sort of just in general. Sorry, this is existing, what we have existing on the ground, and if you look at this drawing, you can see at the top north part of the site is the site in question, and it's outlined in red. So this is sort of Temple Road, and then it's bounded by Westlake coming up, and then to the south of it you can see what is a large wooded area, and this wooded area is called.
Sorry, Chair, we don't have an outline in red on the map.
Can you see it there now?
Thank you.
Yes. So this is the hall in the school in this red line. So this is the site that we're talking about, and then to the south of the site, you can see what is shown by green trees is a wooded area, and it's called Blackhead Moss. And within this wooded area, there is a sort of a smaller pond, and this is where it was believed that the RAF plane landed. And I think it was 1944. So it's just sort of letting you know where that is. And then if you go south from the site, you'll see the two lakes that are the east and the western lake out in Enochloch. And also as well on the site, you can see there is what we would term as the farmer's lane. I'm sort of running the cursor around it, which is the farmer's private lane. And this is all quite relevant to when you see our proposal. And then finally, at the bottom of the site, you can see where the farmer's lane accesses onto Judges Road, which is, and below that is the rugby club and Grantia Woods. So as I was saying, that when Ena Country Park asked me, they were to provide a feasibility study for this. They were concerned or considering the woods, the lakes, and access to the Greenway, and it was agreed that we could sort of provide a hub that would connect all and allow access to all from the site. So in terms of a concept plan, we are looking at this type of thing. I'll zoom in again so that we can see. So again, this at the top would be the hub, and it was envisaged this hub that would be, car parking facilities, there will be bus parking facilities, there will be cafe facilities, community facilities, and maybe some kind of external teaching facility, so that school children or others could come to the site and access the woods. And it's, again, this is only a concept drawing, but the plan would be that you would have two routes through the woods, a more direct route, which would be the straighter route, and then maybe a meandering route. And within the meandering route, there would be pop-out areas in the wood where teaching could take place, or information about nature could take place. And then we also have the facility of a small bridge going over the pond. This initial connection will give you connection onto at the bottom, which is the farmer's lane. It'll give you access to the lake. And at this point, there is a proposal maybe having changing rooms and a small boathouse giving access onto the lake. And then if we move forward along the private lane, it will give access onto Judges Road and possibly through the rugby club to Grantia Woods and then onto the Strathfoyle Greenway. In terms of the centre, I would believe that the centre would provide a hub for the rural area. And I think Paul touched on this a bit, where it would act as a destination from the city, so that people who were using the Greenway from the city could come out to the hub and maybe have a break and have a cup of coffee or something in the cafe and then turn and go back. And with that, they will be seeing the natural landscape of the lakes, the woods, and even maybe finding out some of the history about the RAF airplane and such that had landed in Blackhead Moss. But in reverse, it also will provide a starting point for people from the more rural areas, that they can come and rather than traveling the whole way into the city, they can park their car and either walk or get on their bicycle and make use of the Greenway and get access through the woodland to the Greenway. In terms of the design, we are sort of just still very preliminarily looking at the buildings and looking at the site, but I think that what this is some conversation today is about is trying to get the links through the woods to the lake, to Grantia Woods, and get the link onto the proposed or the new Strathfoyle Greenway. And I think that's really all the questions or conversation I have about it at this stage.
No, thank you very much, Kevin. It's Paul here. We're quite happy to take any questions or comments, feedback that the members might have, and be keen to hear from you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you to Paul, Philip, and to Kevin for the presentation. Fairly impressive presentation, a very ambitious project. I have a number of indicated speakers here, first of which is Councillor Jackson. Go ahead, Chris.
Good Chair, and I want to echo your thanks on behalf of Sinn Féin to Paul, Philip and Kevin for the presentation, and it was useful to have sight of the presentation prior to the committee. And I think Paul outlined it at the start. This is a very exciting master plan for the people of Strathfoyle and beyond. And I know as a committee and as a council, we have discussed it briefly as part of a joint motion that was brought in front of full council. And I know as a party we fully supported that. And from speaking to one of the people that tabled that motion, Councillor Fleming, he certainly shares that excitement around how this master plan could make a real difference to this part of our council area. But Paul, whenever he was doing his presentation, alluded to future development, nearby future development, and there's this council's planning committee have approved upwards of 800 houses at the Ballyone site. We know that there's zoned housing land in the Grantia estate. So see, whenever we're looking forward, this will be transformational for that part of for the entire waterside and Fahan DEAs. And albeit that when we see the upwards of 1,000 houses being built over a 10-year period, it'll be transformational, but we've got a duty to offer protection to the environmental assets that currently exist. And the woods in Loch are certainly worthy of protection. So I think whilst this is an exciting project, it's also a much needed project. So the concept of a rural hub is something that will offer the protection and better management of the assets that currently exist. So I think that this project is a fantastic project. I think it's great to see the councils working with the community, because that's the whole ethos and concept of community planning, is that a lot of the projects and initiatives are community led. And I know the community organizations in Strathboyle have always led from the front in terms of that. So, and I don't envisage that changing anytime soon. So we look forward to seeing this progress. And just a brief point on the Greenway, because as this committee has had quite a bit of discussion around the Northwest Greenway piece, and we're making major strides in terms of improving the offering, or the Greenway infrastructure that exists right across our council district. But the important aspects of greenways is linkages, and this will contain the Strathboyle Greenway is a much needed addition to the Waterside Greenway. This initiative will be a much needed addition to the Strathboyle Greenway, and now as we start to see the Greenway being the Northwest Greenway develop, we're starting to see all those linkages, and you can see how it's becoming more worthwhile. It's you can see the jigsaw coming together, and I think that's fantastic. And that's something that we should always encourage. And again, I would I go to Strathboyle regularly, and I look forward to the completion of the Strathboyle Greenway. But maybe further down the line, this addition to the Strathboyle Greenway, where we can, as was alluded in the presentation, where the Enoch Loch itself could become a destination. So I want to thank everybody that presented, and I look forward to further updates being brought to the council as we see this progress. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Our next indicated speaker is Councillor Ferguson. Go ahead, Rachel.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Paul, Philip and Kevin for coming today and presenting. Chair, I spoke about Enoch Country Park when I co-signed the motion and brought it to Council. I had the privilege to grow up in the Enoch area, and I didn't know, I said that at night, I didn't know the full history. I'd been since given a great book from one of our Enoch seniors about the history of it, and I'm working my way through it. It is extensive. This area is an absolute gem. It's gem of one of our rural areas, and I would love to share this with our entire city and district. The proposal from Enoch Country Park is amazing. Not only will it protect the area, which is of outstanding beauty and biodiversity, but it will also promote healthy green travel. It'll have outdoor learning. It'll have ecotourism all included in it. I could talk all day about my love for this area and how much it is. Everybody should enjoy it, and the access to the Greenway was vital, which is why we brought the motion. But I think Paul and Philip and Kevin have outlined everything that we could possibly say, even tying it in with our own council policies. But I think the only thing that we can really do, because it's been such a great presentation right now, is to propose that the three clear asks today, we put them forward to the chamber and vote on them. So, Chair, thanks again to everybody at Enoch Country Park for the work that they've been doing on this. And I would like to propose that we adopt the three asks today from the presentation. I'm happy to put it in the chat if you want, Chair.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Councillor Ferguson. And we can take that at the end of the discussion. If seconded, of course. Councillor Jackson's indicating there that he's prepared to second it. Rachel, are you happy enough to put that into the chat box, and I'll move on to our next councillor?
Absolutely, just working away on it now, Chair.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, our next speaker is Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in, and can I just say a warm welcome to Paul and Philip and Kevin to the committee today. And I have to say what a very, very strong presentation. And I would like to put on record the DEP's support for this very exciting and ambitious and much needed project in the area. And look, it will totally transform the area. And we totally, our party totally agree with the concept and around that there, and around rural tourism and around a healthy lifestyle. I think that's what we all adhere to at the moment. And I'm delighted to hear that council is playing a part along with Rapid and the membership of this forum here. It's good to see that we're doing our part. And, you know, as I said, it's a much needed project. And look, Chair, everything has been said. It has a really ambitious and much needed project. But look, Councillor Ferguson's proposal, our party have no problem. I know it has been proposed and seconded. Our party has no problem in supporting that proposal and moving this wonderful project forward. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in.
Thank you, Alderman. Just for the presenters, I'm not asking you to come back in because councillors haven't really asked a question as such, but unless a councillor does ask a question, I'll bring you in at the end of councillors' comments. So our next indicated speaker is Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Paul and Philip and Kevin for your presentations. Of course, People Before Profit, you know, support this vision and support the proposals that Councillor Ferguson has proposed there. And I just want to say first and foremost, like, well done to the local community for really driving this forward. You know, we're seeing this here today, but it's been kind of years in the making, really. And I think the Strathboyle community just are an excellent model of an active community who are committed to improving their local area. And I think this will bring so much to the local area. I think, yes, definitely in terms of people enjoying the Greenway, but also looking at that modal shift for people who want to use the Greenway rather than their car. And you know, and I think this is another piece in that jigsaw for the Greenway. And I think what's really great about this is that, you know, the local communities, you know, when you're on the ground in the community, you see, you know, the potential for what can happen, and you have that vision, and you also see practically what would work and what would benefit the local community. So I think this is just fantastic because it's really been driven and come from people on the ground and the community. And this is, as I say, is kind of one part of the jigsaw, and you know, it would be great then to see this linked up to cross the road into that new development, to cross the road so people can commute to workplaces such as Crescent Link or even out in the Galvin Hospital. Because I know for anybody who's tried to cross that road on a bicycle, you take your life into your own hands. So I think this is you know, this is so welcome as a piece of that jigsaw, and if we can connect the Strathboyle community further up, I think that's important. Just a question I have is around the Saturday Rugby Club, and has there been much engagement with that? As a declaration of interest, I am a member of the rugby club as a player, and I know that I'm sure they would very much welcome this, particularly for people who are part of the rugby club to again access a rugby club through a greenway rather than along the road, improving that sustainable travel, those sustainable travel options.
I can't talk a minute here, okay? Bring you back. Bring you back. No, bring you back.
Could I just remind members to please have your mics turned off?
So yeah, I think this will do so much for the local community. Enoch Loch is a completely just an absolute gem in the local area. I've fallen in love with it myself over lockdown and really utilised it quite a lot. And I just want to say well done again to the local community for driving this, for having this vision, and for bringing this forward. I think it's really, really excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill, and you declared an interest there as a member of the Derry City Rugby Club, am I right?
Yeah, City of Derry Rugby Club, but yeah.
City of Derry Rugby Club, my apologies. And could I ask one of the presenters maybe just to address that query around the liaison with the rugby club? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for all your comments. It's very much appreciated. I can confirm that council officers, I think it's the Greenway officer, Mike Savage, who's been doing a really excellent job in advancing the Strathfoy Greenway project. He has met, I think, with Colin Kennedy and all our officers with the rugby club very recently, maybe just as recent as last week or the week before. And hopefully moving forward now into the month of April, the plan is to get a wider steering group of all sort of stakeholders, because there's also the Oaks trout fishery in the West Lake, whereas our vision and plan at the minute is very much focusing on that connection into the East Lake. But I think there's a job of work to be done around consulting with the existing trout fishery and indeed the rugby club, so we can maximise the potential. And I just one more point, I think Councillor Jackson raised it was around like why now, and people were very concerned. And they were looking forward to it, and they were concerned at the same time, seeing the 800 houses being proposed and having a look at what's in the local development plan in terms of the Western Trust plans for housing there as well. And so then the question of why now, had arisen, and it was, now is the time to better protect and conserve Enoch Loch, and in doing that also opening up in a way that it can be accessible to everyone, but at the same time protected. And I think crucially moving forward, it's trying to strike that balance. But no, on behalf of the group, thank you all very much for your comments. Thank you.
Okay, I have Alderman Hussey next. Go ahead, Derek.
Firstly, apologies that I have my mic still on, Chair. And can I say hello to an old adversary and good friend, Gus Hastings, who I note is on the link. Tremendous and exciting proposal in front of us, but just a couple of questions. Greenway for the city, what sort of distances are we talking about, and how will this Greenway at Enoch, which is on the left as you go to Portrush from my perspective, how will that link in to the city? And secondly, I think somebody did say that Claudy will access this project. Could I have a wee bit of amplification on how Claudy will be involved within the overall project? And of course, as you are well aware, Chair, there are quite a few projects of this nature within the wider rural area, which are extremely welcome. And I trust that this one will succeed. But at the same time, how does this all link in to the overall project plan? Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, Chair.
Thanks, Alderman. I'll just ask one of the presenters maybe to come in there to answer some of those queries. Thank you.
Yeah, Kevin, do you want to come in on that one? Kevin, no. Well, I try my best to answer it. Alderman Hussey, the existing Greenway network that comes out from the water side actually finishes in the grounds of the Grantia estate owned by the Department of Health. And obviously there's quite a significant, I think it's 38 hectares of woodland there that is in the ownership of the Department of Health, and we had been in correspondence with your colleague, the Health Minister Swan, on that regarding the future arrangement of how we can look at a community managed woodland model for Grantia Woodland. And as Councillor O'Neill says, the amount of people commuting to and from work within that Western Trust site, one of the core aims of the Strathfoyle Greenway was to allow people to get to work in the industrial areas of the Sahalee and Maydown and Dewpond and that. So at present, the existing waterside Greenway ends, if you like, within the heart of the Grantia estate. The Ballyown development is just across the road, and I know phase 2 of the Jones scheme. I know it's not over the line yet, but all the plans and works are there to make those linkages then across the road and onwards. So there would be that link towards the Crescent Link. And work on the Strathfoyle Greenway eventually is anticipated to extend that to Eglinton. But I think what we were talking about in terms of creating the rural hub is the likes of Cloddy and Campsie and all of our rural areas, they'll be able to drive to this rural hub and then access the Northwest Greenway network from this site. Obviously, work has just started now and getting it out to Strathfoyle, and I know Council's Greenway officers are very keen to extend it right down to the sort of border with Causeway, Coast and Glens in terms of that council area, taking it down past Eglinton towards the airport and on the boundary with Greystale. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's just once you're in Grantia Woodland now in the Grantia estate, it's only one field separating it from the City of Derry Rugby Club's lands, and then you're onto the private laneways and access to these 2 lakes. But that's historically been the problem. There simply isn't adequate access there, and it's also about improving the safety of all that site as well. So I'm hoping that answers some of your comments.
Appreciate it, Paul. Thanks for bringing.
Alderman Hussey and Karen will come on just at the end of members' questions to maybe address the overall iron with council. So our next speaker is Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Paul, Philip and Kevin and my old friend Gus, who I see on there, for taking the time out today to present this. Speaking to my party colleague, Councillor Sean Mooney, who obviously was involved and name was on the notice of motion that came before council in November. It's not hard to see why this presentation is before us today and why this is a very, very good idea. Obviously, as been touched on before, Chairman, this is a growing and expanding community, and I hold my hands up. I most likely will be one of the people who will, when this is developed, will be down trying to learn about the RAF plane and everything that happened and around that, because to my own, I suppose, I don't know an awful lot about what went on down there or about the land down there, but it's something that I will be certainly open to learning. And I know, I think it was Kevin or Philip, sorry, that talked about the opportunities for learning about what went on down there. And I think that would be extended not only to the people within that local Strathfoyle area, but people from right across the city as well would benefit from these plans. We, as a group, have no issue with supporting Councillor Ferguson's proposal here this afternoon. I think it's a continuation in very many ways of the notice of motion which went through council. The SDLP have no issue in backing that. I think this type of work shows the link and the importance, in my view, of this committee with a notice of motion at council and then link-ups between the local community and this committee. We will hopefully see something develop and something that is a real asset to the wider community. I know people from across this city who, during the pandemic, have started this cold water dipping and are driving from all around the city to park in Grantia's grounds, run out to Enoch Block and go in and do this cold water dipping. I think with the extension of the hub and that out and around this area, it opens up a massive opportunity for this community, and the SDLP have no issue in supporting it today. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tierney. I have no further indicated speakers at this point, other than to bring Karen in from a council officer perspective. So go ahead, Karen.
Thank you, Chair and members. Just for your information, in terms of this, members, you will be aware, I suppose from the press last week, etc., that we have now commenced work on the Strathfoyle Greenway, which was one of the key capital projects of council, and we hope to see that completed late summer. And members, as you will have heard from the presentation today, the community, as part of that wider steering group, will now engage with officers to see, next steps in terms of scoping. In terms of, I suppose, Alderman Hussey's point in terms of the wider capital plan of council, members, clearly, yes, you will be aware that we have many projects on our capital plan, and we as officers are at the minute working through that list, trying to scope that, and working to see how we may suggest prioritisation of that to members, and the Chief Executive intends to meet with the Capital Working Group in the coming months in order to discuss that with members and put forward proposals for your consideration in terms of how we take forward the wide range of capital plans that council have, and that members are very keen to see delivered clearly in line with the resources that are available to us as council. So members, from an officer perspective, just to echo the members and thank the team for coming in and presenting today on their proposals. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Karen, and I note Councillor Mooney's comments supporting what's been said here today as well about the project. Just go back now to our presenters. Is there anybody there who would like to maybe sum up or to add anything before we move on to our next agenda, before we take the vote? Required.
You want to come in, Gus, on that?
I'm not going to say too much. Good to see all our colleagues sitting around there and making a positive contribution to our society. And our council has been at the forefront of greenways for a long time. And obviously, this particular one for us is very important. And that the linkage where where this is going to be available to everyone. And I think that's the key to our council being successful, that we make sure that anything that we do does not be delocalized, that it actually links in and ties up with the rest. I think Derek there was saying earlier on about how is it all linked up. And like the fact, if you would need to be actually up in a helicopter to have a look down and then see from there where the cloudy thing comes on. So don't be trying too hard at this stage of the game. As Paul said earlier, that we are now down at the Maydown roundabout with the new footpath, and obviously that's going to take us right down as far as the airport, because they are a hard standing on the left-hand side of the road. But obviously our objective is to take people away from the transport, sort of like heavy goods vehicles, etc. And if you consider that if we start at Strathfoyle, we will be able to actually meet, we maybe go to Strabane via the Strathfoyle Greenway. So, Chair, thank you very much for having us on to start off with. But at the same time, we are thanking you for your support and your continued support, which we'll do our best to meet halfway at all times. Thank you, Chair.
And thank you, Gus, as well. It's good to see you back in the chamber, even though you're not technically in the chamber, but you're on the screen in the chamber. I didn't recognise you earlier on. You look about 10 years younger. It must be the lack of stress since you've left council. It was good to see you, Gus, and hope you're keeping well. Members, the motion is on the chat box there from Councillor Ferguson. It has been seconded by Councillor Jackson there, and members, I don't think there's a necessity to put it to a vote, as members have all spoke very positively about essentially what the ask was within the presentation, what this proposal is. So members, I'm going to propose that we take the motion as unanimously passed. And unless any other presenters want to add anything, I would just like to thank them again for coming and presenting to council. So thank you to Paul, to Philip and to Kevin. Thanks for your presentation, and to Gus as well. Okay, members, we move on then to item 6, which is chairperson's business. And the only item I have is just essentially to welcome the climate change legislation that has successfully went through Stormont, and to say that Karen intends to bring a report the next month's council meeting on the aspects of that legislation that is particularly relevant to council. Item 7, members, is matters arising from our previous minutes, the open minutes of the Environment Regeneration Committee from last month, and I'll take them all, pages 15 to 24. And Alderman Hussey, it's indicated.
Thank you, Chair. ER 4122, Head of Environment, in response to a query from myself, clarified he intended to engage with communities over the coming weeks in respect of the above programme that was a Christmas illumination. What engagement has taken place since that last meeting, or is planned subsequent to this meeting? Thank you.
Chair, happy to take that. I spoke to an officer who is going to engage directly with the communities. I made him aware of the requests that we have had over recent weeks. So he's going to speak to those communities directly and just get a fuller picture of what that ask is. Once we have completed that, we'll bring that back to members for consideration. But that process is ongoing at the moment.
Chair, just subsequent to that, is there a timeline on that?
Chair, the officer is engaged in a number of projects considering year end, and we're endeavouring to do it as quick as possible. But I'll find out which groups he has spoken to over recent times, and I can update Alderman Hussey directly.
I appreciate that, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek and Connor. Councillor Edwards, are you looking on this item?
No, not item, Chair. Sorry, another item.
Okay, no problem. Councillor O'Neill, ER 37/22.
Thanks, Chair. It's just from the point about DFI, I've just had a number of constituents contact me with regards to the big tree cutting that the DFI were doing just in February there, kind of, you know, along the Crescent Link and along Craigan Road and down Madam's Bank Road and other places. And, you know, I just want to, like, you know, raise those concerns through council. I know the council are responsible for those tree cuttings, and you know, I have spoken with the FI around this, and you know, they've informed me that they don't have any obligation to inform council that this is happening, and you know, people have been very upset about like the lack of consultation and the lack of education around like why are these trees getting cut. You know, fair enough if there's a need such as ash dieback, that's fair enough. But you know, they're like people, they, you know, see these trees as parts of their community, and do not want to see trees removed at a time of climate crisis when, we should have been planting trees 30 years ago. The trees that were planted 30 years ago, we definitely shouldn't be planting them down unless absolutely necessary. So I think that, I want to criticise the FI for their, they seem to be very quick to cut down and to remove trees. And, I know they've made the news around this in other parts of the north around their practice around trees. And just kind of on this as well, obviously, tree cutting season should be ended by the end of February. So, it's advised because of birds nesting and mating that no trees are cut down between March and the end of August, I think. And but someone has emailed and contacted me today around trees being cut down in the old Foyle School on the Northern Road. So I just wonder, does the officers know who has responsibility for this site? And if they know anything about this and what can be done, because obviously tree cutting now should be ceased. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. I'm just going to bring in Councillor Tierney, who wants to say something on this item as well.
Chair, thank you, and I suppose thanks to Councillor O'Neill for raising this particular issue. I, like herself, and probably like many other councillors across this council area, were contacted by people who were shocked to see that DFI were coming and literally ripping apart sections of their community. I was shocked, however, to find out, I suppose, and I know Councillor O'Neill has mentioned this, to find out that DFI seem to have no obligation to speak to council, to speak to local community organisations, or to even consult, at the very least, a leaflet drop within local areas. These trees are part and parcel of that local community, and very much residents are upset by the fact that they have been taken down without them being informed, Chair. And with your permission, I would like to propose that we write the DFI to find out if the trees that have been recently cut down in areas across this district will be replaced, because I'm on the understanding that they're not going to be, and I would like to find out first and foremost if that's going to happen. So, Chair, with your permission, I would like to make that a formal proposal, and I can put that into the chat box if you wish.
Yeah, no problem. That's a fairly straightforward proposal. I've also Councillor Jackson indicated to speak on this item.
Thanks, Chair. And I suppose I've no issue with the proposal that's been put forward by Councillor Tierney. But I have been in conversations with DFI for some time about the issue of tree management, particularly around the Crescent Link, but parts of Kilfennan as well, where I'm getting contacted by constituents who are concerned about the lack of tree management and maintenance, and some of the trees have become overgrown and causing road safety issues, and they've caused damage to property. But during the conversations that I've had with DFI, and I'm saying this has been on over a period of months, DFI had highlighted the concerns that they had with ash dieback and how the constraints that has put on their resources. So I think there does need to be a more consultation or more communication between ourselves as council and that element of DFI. But what had been explained to me over many times is that this action, in terms of addressing the ash dieback, was a necessity to protect the healthy trees, and that's something that I can understand maybe concerns that some residents may have or some elected reps may have. But I think if we're looking in terms of protecting the environment for future generations, a key component of that is protecting the healthy trees that exist and along our carriageways and along right across the council area. And if the EFA need to take steps like this to protect healthy trees, we shouldn't be making politics out of it. And that's what I think we should be able to see the wood for the trees in terms of some people that are coming on here, despite receiving the explanation from DFA in the first instance. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I'm going to bring Karen on at this stage.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And through you, we will write to the Divisional Roads Manager in relation to this issue and seek an update. And members, in terms of the other land issue that Councillor O'Neill mentioned, we will get the details and again write to the relevant authority in relation to that as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Karen. Alderman Ramsey, do you want to come on this issue, or is this a different issue?
Same issue about basically the tree cutting. No issue with the proposal. Our party are supportive any consultation moving forward, and it's quite clear whenever the tree surgeons are working at trees that it's to do with a number of different situations. We do know that we're now in storm air conditions, and a lot of trees are getting a bit of a hammering, to be quite honest, and they're weakening, and there's cracks and breaks and branches, and we all know how dangerous it can be. There's definitely a lot of health and safety issues going forward. So as I say, we have no issue at all with any further consultation. But I understand that we do have to protect the environment, and we do have to protect mature trees that are actually possibly damaged. And I know that the majority of issues that we have as local representatives on the water side with trees is trees that are actually an issue, a danger. Many times we've had to consult and get trees cut back or topped to make them safe, and at the same time obviously protecting the trees. But as I say, our party would have no issue whatsoever in for future or further consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Members, I'm not going to allow anybody to come back on it because essentially this item was about street lighting and we were talking about trees. But listen, we have a proposal from Councillor Tierney in the chat box there. Has anybody seconded? I don't think anybody has. Councillor O'Neill's happy to second it, and members take it from the speakers that there'll be nobody opposed to the writing of a letter. So members, I'll take that as unanimous. Councillor O'Neill, you have a second item to raise?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Two points on this, if that's okay. So the first one is around so this is obviously a Don't Mow Let It Grow theme, and I've seen just kind of obviously with a wee bit of dry weather last week, it was great to see, and I seen like a lot of council grass getting cut around the area, and I was just wondering, like I'm aware kind of like environmental advice would be to not cut back and get ahead of ourselves when it comes to mowing grass and kind of redding up from the winter until the temperature is consistently above 10 degrees, because many of our habitats such as butterflies and bees and other pollinators are still wintering in dead leaves and hollowed out stems of last year's plants, and so I'm just asking the question, does council have a policy kind of on when we begin this grass cutting? Because I know the grass, it was winter long, but it wasn't too bad. And I think we were a wee bit sort of quick to get in and get going and cutting grass in our land. So that's just a question. So if we want to maybe just address that first and then just have another issue kind of on the same sort of thing, if that's okay.
Chair, happy to take that. Yeah, the normal process is to leave grass until we're into the growing season, which is really into the end of March, beginning of April. It's been well documented. We've had a very mild winter and grass has continued to grow for that period of time. Now, there's an operational consideration in here in that we don't box grass when we cut it. If we leave it too long, well then we get into having to box it, which is a cost issue. Or if we don't box it, it then becomes a a litter waste issue type thing. So those are the considerations from an operational perspective. The team are aware and particularly aware of areas that are left. To just for that purpose, so that we provide early habitat and feed for particularly insects and so on. So there are patches that we leave, but there are areas that we will know that dandelions will thrive on. So we have considered all of that, but in terms of cutting, we have to consider both the operational requirements to get out and ensure that we manage that process. So it's a combination of checking the weather, leaving it as long as we can, but not leaving it so long that it then becomes a problem for the crews.
Okay, Councillor O'Neill, you have another point?
Yes, thanks for that, Clara, and it's been good to see a few dandelions starting to rise as well, which is great sign of spring. So yeah, just the other point on that, I had raised last month just around the glyphosate, the training that councillors had undertaken with the Pesticide Action UK, and I at the time I had made that proposal, which people felt needed more time and consideration. Now, I've kind of went back to look at old council motions, just so, at the motion that Councillor Logue had brought in February 2019, and part of that motion in 2019 had said that we council pledges to encourage other statutory agencies to do likewise, and likewise was ban glyphosate or eradicate the use of it. Now, I had proposed a task force at the last council meeting. For me, this seems perfectly in line with that motion from February 2019. It doesn't seem to be at all something that is against the council policy. So I want to just make that proposal again about creating that task force around eradicating glyphosate, because councillors doing excellent in this process. However, with DFI, the Housing Executive, the Western Trust, and Department for Education doing kind of really not doing anything about it, and we're not on the same page. And people have been in contact with me to say, this is great, the council is eradicating the use of glyphosate, but it means nothing if these other statutory agencies are using it in our council area. And that's why, from the training, they recommended a task force with all these statutory agencies to do likewise, as per the motion in February 2019, which council's already passed. So I just want to make that proposal again about creating this task force, if that's okay, Chair.
Councillor O'Neill, I'm going to bring in Karen just to comment on that.
Through you, Chair. Members, just to remind you that since the notice of motion in 2019, Council have, through in line with our Green Infrastructure Plan, set up a Green Infrastructure Partners Working Group. And members, it may well be that in the first instance you might want to consider that this matters is discussed at that forum, because the relevant statutory partners and other organisations who are in effect the larger landowners within the city and district, they take part in that Green Infrastructure Partners Working Group. So members, just for your information, that may be something that you want to consider. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Karen, and I've Councillor Logue indicated here. Councillor Logue,
Chair,
you want
myself, yeah. Thanks for, I'm not on this committee, Chair, but thanks for letting me speak. No, it's just following on from what Councillor O'Neill said about the task force. My recollection of the meeting was that we talked about, like, we needed an overarching strategy, and that council were going to be bringing a paper and the council about the next step forward with options. So if maybe Connor can clarify that, please.
Yeah, Chair, that was the outcome of the workshop, and the officer team will work towards that. But obviously, we need some time to consider the different policy measures, what that would look like. But certainly, that's intention to bring it forward.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. No, I was thinking that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Tierney, you want none on this same issue?
I was chair. You may recall that at last month's committee, it was myself that suggested that it may have been bunched on us between then and now. I've been doing my own homework, I suppose. But Connor's answer to Patricia, or sorry, to Councillor Lowe, has slightly skewed things for me again, I think, to be honest with you. You know, we've no issue in setting up a task group to discuss this with other relevant stakeholders across this district. But if council are already or are currently in the process of writing an options paper, that can be, I think we may be possibly better waiting for the options paper to see how we take this forward, and maybe ask Karen to follow up on her own suggestion that this may be an agenda item on the next meeting of the Green Infrastructure Task Group, if that's a possibility. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Tierney. Just having listened to Karen and Connor, especially the comments around the task force group, I don't think it's appropriate to take that proposal, Councillor O'Neill, at this juncture, and maybe it should be discussed at the Green Infrastructure Group that has been set up to discuss very matters like this. And given the fact that there is an options paper coming back to council, I think that's the more sensible way to go at this juncture.
I'm content to wait for that. That's not unreasonable at all. I was just wondering when's the next meeting of the Green Infrastructure Working Group?
Through you, Chair. Members, I don't have the details of when that actually is. One of our officers will take that forward, but certainly I can arrange to ensure that this issue is raised at the group. I know they meet regularly, but I don't have the details of the exact dates. Thank you, Chair.
Alderman Devaney, you want none on this issue?
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. And I have to say, I agree with some of the previous speakers in relation to this issue. And look, Connor and them have put forward that there is an options paper coming forward, and I believe that is the right time. And our party would be happy to wait until we see sight of that options paper. Just to confirm that, Chair. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Morris. Members, will move on then to Councillor Edwards, ER 35.
Chair, thank you. I think it's the longest wait I've ever had there to get in. But Chair, ER 35, I was going to bring this in under an item for information on recycle centres, Chair, but it's not related to that item. I just wanted to raise the Kiln Recycling Centre, and I actually thought it was raised last month's committee meeting, but I couldn't actually find it in the minutes. Chair, as you're well aware, as a dear colleague, the issue of Kiln Recycle Centre has been on for I think 2 years now. We're well into 2 years now since it was closed down. So I was wondering, could maybe Connor give an update of where we are with the new recycling centre, and if there's any sensitivities or legalities around that, I'm happy to get that update offline. And I would also suggest maybe an update meeting with the DARE councillors, because probably like yourself, Chair, I'm getting a lot of messages through Facebook and so on, asking where we are with this new recycling centre. But I would appreciate an update from officers if possible. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, happy to provide an update, and we are intending to meet with the DARE councillors next week to give them a more in-depth update. LPS and myself met with the landowners some weeks back to go through the various options, and we've made progress on that. Now, what's happened since is the LPS officer who had been dealing and working on this project has been transferred to Belfast, and another officer has been allocated to the case. Now, that person has needed just a bit of time to get up to speed with the issues, but we'll be meeting with that person in the next day or two to update as to where we are. And I say, look, I would welcome the opportunities to brief the DARE members in full next week if they're available.
Okay, Councillor Edwards.
Yep, thank you. Thanks for the update, Conor. Appreciate it.
Okay, Councillor Gallagher under ER 44.
Thank you, Chair, for letting us in. I would just like to maybe start off by saying I'd like to thank Conor and the team around street cleansing. And why I say that is over the last, well, quite a while, like we've been inundated with massive complaints around dog fouling, particularly in Strabane. And I have to say, over the last while, there's a marked difference in the footpaths and in and around, and I've been covering it extensively. Melwood Road bypass, Ballycoleman in particular that I've been covering, and I see a really, really marked difference that has been happening. And while street cleansing is only one element, and it's not going to solve the issue, very much as we get into better weather, more people are out and they're using the footpaths, and this is definitely going some way in helping people get out, and hopefully that dog foulers and those who let their dog foul, I will start taking due consideration that. But I have to say that while we complain and we often complain, we should also recognise when it's getting, some elements are getting addressed, and I'd like to thank the team for it and to keep it up. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. I'm sure all councillors would reiterate your comments and sentiments. Alderman Hussey under ER 41.
Thank you, Chair. Christmas illumination programme. I queried, and it was intended to engage with communities over the coming weeks. Has that engagement started? And how's it going?
Chair, yeah, just as I said, that engagement is ongoing. I have an officer tasked with meeting with the groups in and around the district. Just as I said, we are busy at this time of year closing out other projects, but I will get that information and bring it directly to Alderman Hussey in terms of the groups that we had talked about previously.
I appreciate that, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I have no further indicated speakers on their matters arising, so I'll move on to item 8, which is the COVID Recovery Small Settlements Programme, and Bonnie's going to take this one for us.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is reports to update you on the current progress in respect to the COVID Recovery Small Settlements Programme in terms of the feedback from the central government funders. Members, you'll recall the item presented to ENR Committee back in January, advising the submission of the application to the Department for Communities, Department for Infrastructure, and also DERA under the recently launched programme. At committee back in January, members, you were briefed on the programme, its funding criteria, the objectives, and the budget and match funding requirement from Council also, and at which point that was approved in terms of the draft list of projects forming part of the original submission, as well as the Council 10% mandatory match funding requirement also. You'll note the type of eligible interventions supported under the programme, including shopfront improvements, public realm environmental improvements, derelict site enhancement, cycle tracks or lanes, pavement pathway widening, cycle parking, charging facilities, and connection pathways to access the settlements. Members, when the matter was first reported, you were advised that the application was under active consideration by the 3 government departments, and we're expecting to receive feedback on the list of projects that were presented. The departments have undertaken the initial assessment and have deemed 2 of the projects ineligible, namely the Crana Sperrin Visitor Centre, environmental improvements, and also the proposed Greenway lighting scheme at Dromoa District Park. At the request, the funders' application was updated to reflect their initial review and resubmitted for final assessment. The final assessment concluded, and the lead department, DFC, have now awarded a letter of offer to Council back at the end of February, awarding a total grant sum of £2,023,000 £100,000, which represents 90% of the overall programme value. The table under 3.5 lists the projects, and I'll not go through them in detail. They're there in terms of the proposals put forward, and members, you will have seen those as part of the original submission back in January when we brought that for your attention. Members, in terms of implications, you know, from a climate change and green infrastructure perspective, the proposals, the GI proposals, contribute positively to climate change through active, sustainable transport provisions in terms of walking and cycling routes and tying into those. From a financial perspective, members, since item was presented back in January, the funders have advised of an increase to the original budget allocation of around £182,000. This therefore has an impact on our required 10% match funding contribution approved by ENR committee back in January and represents an additional sum of around £24,000. And the revised figures are broken down in the table in front of you under paragraph 4.3. Members, you're advised that there is a 10% revised that the 10% revised budget contribution of £224,000 can be met from existing council budgets. So in terms of recommendations, members, we're asking you to note the contents of the report and approve the project list and to authorise the increase of the 10% match funding requirement from council's budget to enable drawdown of the external funding due to the increased amount being required from being announced by the funder. Thank you very much, members.
Thank you, Tony. And just as chair of the committee, I'd like to thank officers for the hard work that they've put into this. It's fantastic to see over 2 million invested in the community. A couple of questions myself, but I'll go to members first on this. Councillor Edwards.
Chair, thanks for letting me in. I want to thank Tony and his team for his work in this and fully welcome this 2.2 million investment. And while the city and even Strabane has gotten some investment in terms of streetscape recently, there was a better feeling among our rural areas that felt that they were left out and left behind. And I think this scheme proves otherwise now, so fully welcome it. Especially, Chair, is no surprise, I welcome the plans for our own DA and the Newton Stewart in particular. And they're desperately in need of some new shop fronts there. And I've met with local businesses and they've raised it with me. Castledare the same. And in terms of CMOs, I do welcome the plan scheme there as well. Especially there's going to be work done to the public realm there, and I've raised issues with council in the past about especially outside the public toilets there around CMOs, which are in a very bad state of disrepair and old tree trunks and things lying about. So hopefully they'll be all cleared up in a public realm scheme. Also happy to welcome the schemes in Eglinton, Cloddy and Park 2, Chair. We have done the SLP has done a lot of lobbying on this with Dara Minister Poots and Minister for Communities and Council, and I'm fully welcome this scheme coming together now, and I'm happy to support it and happy to propose the scheme and item, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Edwards. Alderman Husky.
Thanks, and thanks again for the report and all of the interventions that are online. Under 2.2, include interventions such as, and there's a list. Are there other interventions that might not have been listed that could have been considered within this? Because I'm aware that, you know, other councils are doing things slightly differently with regard to muggers and play areas, etc. So are there interventions that we could have considered that have not been considered within what we have in front of us, which is fantastic. And I welcome the fact that there's an intention or that there may be further funding, and within that, could we possibly bring other interventions into what we are already doing? Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chair.
Through the chair, thank you. In response to Alderman Hussey's query, in terms of the list of interventions there, they've been lifted from the programme guidance that has been distributed to the councils just before Christmas. Now, in relation to your query in relation to supporting other interventions over and beyond that, at this minute in time, there's nothing in the guidance which is indicating us to do otherwise. However, picking up your point in relation to maybe where there's potentially other councils taking a different approach, then I will be following up with the departments just to seek further clarification and to provide a further update back to committee. Chair, thank you.
Appreciate that, Chair. Thank you.
Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. And first, can I just put on record the DEPs? Thanks to Tony and the team for the work that has been done here. And Chair, we have no problem in seconding the recommendation here. We think it has been a huge piece of work here. And look, we always talk about rural. This has addressed some of the rural issues here. Not all of them, might I say, but it goes some way to help in that sphere for us rural councillors who are always crying about the discrepancy between rural and urban. But Chair, once again, look, a wonderful project, and like Councillor Hussey, I would just be interested to know what other avenues did other councils take in this. Not that I'm complaining about this one, but maybe if there was future funding for different avenues. But Chair, happy to second it and support the recommendation. And once again, thanks to the team on a huge piece of work.
Thank you, Alderman. Councillor Dan Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to begin by acknowledging the difficult nature of the grant process in this case and commend officers for the work that they had to do in difficult circumstances. But there are a couple of aspects, given what is stated in the report today, that's unsurprising that I want to explore. And I suppose, the core one is really how did we come to submit an application that was ruled ineligible? And I'm thinking, from a Spern perspective mostly, because I think from a reputational point of view, that it is embarrassing for council. And I'm just wondering how we came to that position and did the department. I know there was a lot of moving of goalposts and what have you and is it a case that the goalposts were moved and that application was lost, or how did that come about? Because more than just embarrassing, it has impacted significantly on the worth of the recovery programme for the Spern DEA. The three proposals had a complementarity about them, but one of them pulled, and the image I have is a three-legged stool where one of the legs has been removed. I'm just wondering, has it negated the whole worth of the programme for the Spern DEA? The figures presented show an uplift in grant for the programme for our district, and I do welcome that, as long with the increased council contribution. But with one of the proposals pulled for the Spern DEA, I suppose I'm concerned, what is the value of the programme now for the Spern area? Because that's not delineated in the figures. We don't have an individual costing against or approximation against each individual application. That it's just it's just a cumulative total for the district. Also, I don't intend to stall the project, but I do wonder, is it possible to see the assessment that the department arrived at for the Spern Visitor Centre? And I'm also curious to learn how council can ensure this project is not lost, or can it be amended for future funding programmes? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. I'm going to bring in Karen just on this.
Thank you, through you, Chair, and certainly members. Just from an officer perspective, we were keen to see the elements within the Spern Heritage Centre included within the programme. We took as wide a perspective as we possibly could in terms of putting forward and scoping the initial application. Clearly, we had engagement with the departments, and they obviously looked at their criteria, demographics, etc. But certainly, and again, we're happy to feed that back to members as well. And, you know, certainly from our perspective, this project is clearly important. It's something that we do want to ensure is delivered, and indeed will endeavour to consider how that's taken forward as soon as we possibly can. But certainly we're happy to engage with Councillor Kelly in relation to that particular element of the programme. And, you know, members, as we move forward, really the next steps really for the officer team are, which they've already started and is underway, is in relation to the detailed scoping of each of the interventions to see, you know, what we can actually take forward with the budget available. And then we have begun then to work them up into a more detailed project plan, which we will bring back to members clearly, and we'll do engagement at a DEA level as well to ensure that the elected members of the DEA are fully up to date in progress in relation to this particular project. As you're aware, members, you know, it was a very, very quick turnaround in terms of being aware of this particular programme, and indeed having to move it forward based on the COVID recovery, you know, aspects of the timescales. So really, we have pulled together the programme as best we possibly can. We've begun to scope it in order to make sure that we're able to meet the timelines, but certainly in terms of sparing, you know, we share the disappointment of the sparing DA councillors, and we're committed to look and see what other funding will become available to deliver that element of the project. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Karen. Councillor Kelly, you content enough for that response?
I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
No problem. Members, of no other indicated speaker. I've just a few queries myself. Regarding the spread of the projects, obviously I welcome the amount that are in my own DA, the DARE DA, but I see there's nothing there for Claddagh Glebe area. So I suppose my query just is, you know, was there anything considered for that area? And second query is just regarding the revitalisation scheme of facade painting to commercial properties in Castledearg. Will that be open to vacant properties that are not trading at the minute? And for those businesses that maybe have recently painted their business, will there be like an alternative for them in terms of, you know, the facade painting? Because, you know, I often find that it's unfair to maybe businesses who do upkeep their own property and paint it regularly. So, you know, and they would sometimes say to me, well, why should a business maybe that's not, you know, keeping their property spick and span or whatever, why should they be benefiting when I'm upkeeping mine all the time? So I'm just wondering, you know, for those businesses, will there be another option in terms of the facade painting? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And just to come in on the first item in relation to the Claddagh and Glebe query, the programme has been targeted at the settlements with populations of between 1,000 and 4,999, and the criteria is very much steered us towards the locations that you see in the list that's been presented already. However, we are very aware, and as Karen has just alluded to in relation to the obviously sparing DEA, we've been mindful of just the, I suppose, the characteristics in that DEA in relation to the size, and we were keen to try to maximise the opportunity of grant investment to that DEA. Obviously, we have put forward, and the departments have said to us that settlements that are under 1,000 that they'll be subject to detailed scrutiny and value for money assessment, and therefore, you know, the likelihood that they would not be eligible. Now, in the case of sparing, obviously we put forward a very strong case. because of just the characteristics, and the department have agreed to that. So, as I say, Chair, the focus has been for the larger settlements with this programme, and unfortunately, as you can see, we've tried to spread this a programme with which, in which £2 million is a welcome investment. When you start to allocate that across all of the areas and the projects, then it becomes somewhat challenged and in many ways somewhat diluted in terms of what the overall need might well be. In relation to your second query, again, you raise a very good point in relation to, how will we determine, properties in terms of, what buildings get what. And I think that, one in schemes like this that we have rolled out elsewhere in the district, decorative need is one of the key criteria in terms of looking at premises and identifying, their condition, and obviously the need, and then the impact of any interventions that we might well do. It's something that we would get quite regularly from people who do invest in their premises and upkeep and obviously maintain them very well when they look at maybe investment going elsewhere. And I know sometimes there is an argument for the need, for us to go into address premises that might not be looking well in the interest of the overall presentation of the streetscape, and not to undermine deterioration any further for those businesses that have already invested. So it is a fine balancing act. What I would say with regards to Castlederg, there's a significant amount of properties in the town make up the commercial centre of the town, and obviously what we'll be doing, we'll be looking each of the premises and also noting those, as we will with all the other locations as well, in terms of vacancy and dereliction. And I suppose, applying one of the main principles around decorative need in the first instance, and then working back from there, Chair. And again, as Karen's alluded to, we're more than happy to engage as we start to work up these schemes now, to engage with the DA, rural DA councillors, on a DAA basis, and to get your thinking in terms of the approach that we are going forward with as well too, because that will be important. But again, just taking it back to the fact that, the budget is finite. We're trying to spread it across all of the areas. And obviously what we want to try to do is to make a positive impact on the visual character and presentation of all our rural settlements. And we'll certainly try our best. And with your input and assistance, hopefully we could do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I have Councillor Logue. Go ahead, Patricia.
Again for letting me in. And Tony, it would be just, I suppose, my own DAA, the Mirror. Like, I have a mix of, urban and rural, and within the DAA is Nixon's Corner in Calais. Now, I did hear you mention about the population, but I think between them, there may be, it may add up to the number. So I was just wondering if there was any more monies that area could be looked at, because there is a great need for many things out in that area, but let alone a connecting footpath and lighting, etc. So if that could be maybe included in another scheme, if there was more money becoming available, please. Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair, Councillor Logue. Obviously, the programme has been, in terms of criteria that we've been working to, has been to target principally established commercial village centres and small rural town centres. Where there's I suppose, a commercial presence there, because effectively this is, the regeneration side of the programme is very much replicating some of the urban programmes that we've rolled out in Derry City Centre and Strabane Town Centre. And then obviously the departments have added a further layer of eligibility around the population sizes as well, in terms of defining where that investment might well go. Obviously we've, at this stage, we've worked to try to get the programme defined as quickly as we can. Unfortunately, at this moment in time, Councillor Logue, there may not be scope for us to add any further settlement into this current programme. However, one thing that we've been keen to emphasise with the departments is that this is a pilot initiative. This is a pilot initiative where they, in many ways, have been listening to the concerns of elected members, and this committee will be very aware of those concerns over the years in terms of trying to find programmes, regeneration programmes that have been delivered in the urban area and that they be rolled out similarly within the rural area as well. And what we are hoping that we can do is to get this programme on the ground, start to deliver, and also start working with the department around how we can take this from being just a pilot, one-off programme to something that could potentially be mainstreamed, and where we could then maybe start to look at other settlements, including those that you've mentioned within your ward, and indeed other locations that haven't been included in this round of funding. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Tony. Alderman Hussey has declared an interest for the facade improvement and the DERG as per the Register of Interests. And Alderman Hussey, you're looking to come on as well.
I am, and can I thank you for highlighting the issue of those businesses within our community who undertake these improvements under their own, under their own jurisdiction, and there is a need for council to engage with all of those businesses as per my own declared interest, and to ensure that when there is funding available, it is available to all. And Tony, you mentioned there that you would look at businesses, but you've got to be mindful of those businesses who have invested in their business, perhaps to their own not benefit, but because they care for the community and for the aesthetics of the community that they exist in. So that has to be taken on board as we go forward within this. It's very easy for some businesses to just lie back and say, "Oh, eventually we'll get something," and then they get something. But their neighbours are actually investing in their businesses, and not alone in their businesses, but in the aesthetics of the community that they exist in. Thank you, Chair.
To the Chair, obviously those points are noted, and obviously, we will look, say we're not ruling anything out at this moment in time. I think that obviously we'll be looking, and if over and beyond those premises where they may have carried out works where there's a need for maybe, an improved sign or, will it be facade lighting or something like that, then we'll certainly look at that. And I think it's going to be down to an individual property by property basis. But I think at this stage, what we're doing, we're starting to scope I suppose each of the settlements that have been identified and starting to work through, I suppose, a series of criteria that will direct us towards where that investment goes. And again, Chair, if Alderman Hussey or indeed any elected member have any particular points that they would wish to highlight to us as we now start to progress, then more than happy for them to contact me or the member of my team directly. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay, members. It's been proposed by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Hussey, and I'm not sensing anybody against it, so I'll take the recommendation as unanimous. Members, so that brings us on to our next items, which are items for information. Items 9 to 14, unless any member wishes to raise something. And I have Councillor Gallagher who wants to raise item 11, the mineral prospecting licence application. Go ahead, Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, and everybody on here will be aware of Council's current position on mining, and they'll also be aware that this council is currently taking out a judicial review on the issue of previous prospecting licenses, and I think that thanks for this information coming forward of informing us of this, but I think that us as a collective council needs to be challenging this. We have previously sought legal opinion and are moving forward with that legal opinion, and that legal opinion puts us in a very good standing. And of all the stuff we're doing around local planning, around protecting the environment, all that stuff, we have already cleared it legally, and we are in a strong position. And this for the Department for Economy, just to come in and ride roughshod over the top of council wishes, we shouldn't stand for, Chair. I'm not on this committee, but it's come forward first to this committee, and I think that this committee should be making and putting forward proposals to challenge this. It'll probably be challenged at full council, but the remit within this committee should be challenging this and not just taking it for information. That we need to be upholding our corporate position. This is now what they're telling us now is they're going to be coming into areas like Park, Dungiven, coming into Clary, coming into Donamana, Ardy Garvin, and they're just going to ride roughshod, go on lands. They're going to worry sheep, they're going to worry landowners and do what they like. And that's what this Department for Economy is giving them a license to do. And we need to challenge it at every aspect, and we should be challenging it here today. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. I'm going to bring in, as indicated, I have Councillor O'Neill who wishes to speak on the same item.
Chair, and I agree with Councillor Gallagher. This is another opportunity to say that gold mining and Dalradian in particular are not welcome here. I think we have a duty as public representatives to ensure that our voice is loud and clear in this. And so far, there's 38,000 objections already logged on the public planning portal. And I know they're not all from this council area, but I know that many are. And we have a very active and strong anti-mining group in Park Against the Ruination of their countryside. And I think, like, the paper there says, should members wish council to make representations in respect of this, then I think we absolutely should. I think we have a corporate position in opposition to gold mining, and the land affected lies within the Sperrins area of outstanding natural beauty. And it needs to be protected because of this special designation. Like, we've been talking about the Sperrins on multiple occasions this evening, and about the tourism and the regeneration and growth of that area. But if this gold mine goes ahead, that puts all of that in jeopardy, and this area cannot be exploited and destroyed by gold mining. Furthermore, it's covered in peat, and supporting blanket bog and wet health habitats that are recognised as priority habitats here in the north, and also in the EU Habitats Directive. So we need to actually really, include that within it, because our council has very strong climate policies and climate commitments. And if we're actually to make decisions based on the climate crisis that we're in, we cannot be disrupting these bog habitats. And I think, like, to date, over 700 boreholes have been drilled by Dalradian, and several of them left uncapped. So I don't know why they need to be doing any more prospecting licenses, considering I think they've had more than enough time to do the necessary exploration with 700 boreholes drilled. And at the end of the day, exploration, Dalradian style, is going to damage the environment, the water table, the rivers, the air, and ultimately the health of the population living in these areas. And we can't trust, there's no effective, independent or objective regulation of mineral exploration here. We've seen through that spotlight program that the number of examples of failure by those charged with protecting the environment in relation to the breaches by Dalradian to date, and the enforcement process is not fit for purpose. So these are all points I think we should include within our objection to this, and I would like to propose that we submit an objection to these prospecting licenses. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. I have Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Chair. And on Councillor O'Neill's point around us as a council responding, we fully support. Actually took it as a given council's corporate position, that we would be responding and highlighting our frustrations, our disappointment, and indeed our anger that once again the Department of Economy has ignored the wishes of council, have ignored the wishes of the local community, and has ignored the potential devastating impact that this could have on the environment. And as the previous speakers have outlined, the one of the most protected areas of the environment that we have within our council area, the Sperrin AOMB. It doesn't surprise me though. We've seen over the past, for as long as I can remember, the Department of Economy hasn't had any interest in this part of the north. There is very little investment, but there seems to be quite a lot of extraction, and that's something that I find frustrating, and I think it should be something that we should include in our response. We have seen various reports, like the Sony report and ours, where we've seen that our council district have borne a brunt in terms of wind energy production and others, and now we're seeing our council area being exploited once again. We've made it clear in many occasions that the resources and natural resources of Ireland belong to the people of Ireland. They don't belong to any multinational company which would prove little or no benefit to the people that live here. As I said before, I'm not surprised. This is a DUP-led department that's been led for numerous years, and I hope that in the coming months, the people of this council area will send a clear message to DUP how they feel the Department of Economy has treated us over recent times. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Members, I just want to say before bringing the next councillor that we do have Council's legal representative, Philip Kingston's on the line. I'll bring Philip on at the end of members' comments or questions. So our next councillor is Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. I noted that Councillor Gallagher said that we, i.e. Council, are in a strong position. Could he augment on that? I'm not sure what it means by we are in a strong position. And subsequent to that, Councillor O'Neill referred to 38,000 people have objected. How many of those are from our own council area? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Hussey. Alderman Ramsey, you looking in on this issue? See the hand up just on your name, above your name. Sure, we'll move on. In the meantime, we have Councillor Tierney on the same issue. Brian, is it?
Yes, Chair, thank you. And I suppose, like many councillors, I actually thought it was obvious that we were going to make representations to the department to make sure that they once again fully and clearly heard and hopefully understood the corporate position of this council. Questions have been asked about the number of objectors from this council, etc., etc. I don't think it's about that. It's about this council making sure that we are doing what we can to represent our own corporate position. And for that reason, and that reason alone, our group are happy that we should make representations and we should make the Department of the Economy very clear around how we feel about what Dalradian and are thinking that they can come here and do against the wishes of the people and the elected representatives, or the majority of the elected representatives of this council district. So, Chair, just to say that we would, and I suppose I genuinely did think that we were going to make representation anyway, but if we're not, we would be suggesting that we do, and we make sure that it's on before the 10th of April. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tierney, and I take it from your comments that you're basically seconding Councillor O'Neill's proposal.
Yes, Chair, apologies. I thought it was already seconded, but if it's
Yeah,
not,
no.
I'm happy to do so.
No problem. And if Councillor Kelly on this item as well, go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose the arguments regarding the way in which these licences are awarded have been well rehearsed at this and other councils, so I don't propose to repeat them again. Suffice to say that this council, as other members have observed, has a robust position in relation to gold mining in the Sperrins. And you know, as my colleague Councillor Jackson has outlined, an indication of just how out of touch the Department for Economy is that at a time when the economy is being impacted by the biggest energy crisis since the 70s, their focus is solely on dishing out gold mining licences. Chair, in relation to the information that the legal officer is on the call, I do have a query, and I would like clarification on the position taken by Council in relation to the ongoing judicial review to the awarding of previous licences impacting this district and whether this decision can be considered as part of that action. One of the grounds for challenge was in relation to a failure of consultation, and it is noticeable that the department chose to not place the documents in this council district for inspection on this occasion. It's not good enough that the department, who are a statutory partner in the community planning process, are engaged in effectively a game of hide and seek in relation to making documentation available, making people travel to Belfast for a half-hour by appointment only slot in order to examine the documents. You know, it's not good enough. As well as that legal consideration, I'm backing up other members. I would definitely be of the opinion that council should be responding by the 11th of April. And like previous representations, though I suspect the degree to which they will be taken into account will be negligible, but nonetheless, we should be responding and reflecting in that response the concerns of our district. And finally, Chair, I think we should reiterate our call to the DFI Minister to revoke the permitted development rights for persons awarded a mineral prospecting licences. We have done on a number of occasions made a call to the department for this, and it is very disappointing that the Minister declined to advance that proposal under her recent review of planning legislation. In the interests of transparency, permitted development rights must be revoked, and any application for mineral prospecting must be brought fully within the remit of the planning process so that local people have oversight of local impacts. And there's one other thing, Chair, just in relation to the map on page 85. I wonder, can that be reissued because it's incomplete and the section impacting our district is not shown fully on that map? Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Ramsey, I see you're back online. Alderman Devaney had also indicated to speak. I'm not sure if he was maybe stepping into the breach, but
Take Alderman Ramsey first, Chair. Take Alderman Ramsey.
yeah, no problem. Go ahead, Alderman Ramsey.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for allowing me in. I had to blooming take a call there, and that's how I ended up missing out there, or nearly missing out. Yeah. Well, first of all, it's quite obvious the objections are going on there against prospecting once again. But Councillor O'Neill, you know, she says about, you know, Dalradian not welcome here, but you know, she doesn't speak for everyone in our council area because there are many people out there, especially people living in and around Dalradian, who their families are obviously being, being supported by Dalradian through employment, etc. So you know, not everyone is speaking in the same language or same attitude as Councillor O'Neill. Prospecting is not mining. If we didn't do prospecting for the last hundreds of years, we would never have anything because we would have no economy. So you know, they just basically have a overarching opinion that, you know, Dalradian not welcome here. It's not helpful to anybody. But what I would ask council and our legal team is because, you know, we as a council are responsible for the people who we represent, and that includes the ratepayer. So I would like a report brought back on how much to date it has been costing this council to basically oppose Dalradian. That I shall review everything that's been involved and how much it's actually costing our ratepayers, because basically prospecting is not mining. Prospecting is trying to find something that could be of use to this community, all this community. So that is my question, if that is possible, that we get a full account of the expenses to date, and this rhetoric about, you know, like overarching rhetoric that Dalradian's not welcome. You're not speaking on behalf of the entire community within this Strabane city and district, because Dalradian are an employer and a major employer in this council area. And yes, we have a corporate policy, but the people on the ground that are being supported by employment have every right to be spoke up for here. So that's all I'm looking for is, as I say, we're responsibility to the ratepayer, so we'd like to get a full costing so far what it's costing the ratepayer. Thank you very much.
Okay, Alderman Ramsey, I'll bring in Alderman Devaney now.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. And I'm just speaking in response to my colleague just speaking. There are two arguments here. There are the for and they are against. And I watched the Spotlight programme. And listen, I did hear people against, and I did hear people supporting the project up there because of employment and good salaries and stuff like that. And as my colleague has just said about prospecting, if we were prospecting for oil and gas across Northern Ireland today, I think we would be saying in the present climate we're in, it would be very, very welcome. So it would, when we look at the serious increases we have had in the, in the price of our energy, our electric going up, gas going up, heating 500 gallons touching nearly, £600 sterling, putting a lot of people. So I think the prospecting thing, and I want to just go back and around, the DEP taking the blame for this. We have the ministerial post for the Department of the Economy, but I would say this just isn't based. I would say this is based on what evidence was put in front of the Economy Minister. And blaming DEP, I listened to the programme at night, and I just listened to some of the issues on around the people, the security firm who are promoting or who are carrying out security services for Dalradian. And I do believe, if I'm quite right in saying, some of them have links to probably political parties as well. And some of those political parties are on here today against it, while if it was a member of theirs or is still a member of theirs, is providing the security service for them. But Chair, we will not be supporting this proposal going forward. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Devaney. Can I just ask Councillor Kelly to just maybe hasn't seen the message in the box there, but could he just put his proposal about writing to the DFI Minister into the chat box, and also Alderman Ramsey as well? Can you put your proposal into the chat box, as Councillor Leal has already done? So, members, I'm going to bring in Philip at this stage to make comment just on this issue. Go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously no difficulty whatsoever with bringing forward a report just to provide an update as to where we stand, although currently expenditure is within the estimates that have previously been provided to the Council. We did meet with the external legal team that's working in relation to the judicial review last week to discuss the current applications, and officers are currently working to prepare a response to this consultation process in line with the approach which the Council has previously taken, and in line with the approach which is being taken in respect of the judicial review. So just to confirm that that's the position for members.
Okay, thanks for that, Philip. And Alderman Ramsey, I think given what the legal representatives just said there's no need for you to actually make that a proposal. He's already confirmed that he's happy enough to bring that report back, and I'm sure members would have no objection to that. So members, I'm going to go just and take Councillor O'Neill's proposal. I'm going to put it to the vote, just some of the comments. It's obvious some councillors have stated they won't be supporting that. So members, that it has been proposed by Councillor O'Neill and seconded by Councillor Tierney. That, you see,
Not be put on screen, Chair.
it's on the chat box there, Alderman Hussey. Yeah, the proposal is for council to make representation in respect of the mineral prospecting licence in opposition as per council's corporate position against gold mining. So I'm going to ask those in favour. I'll ask Karen actually just to go through the list.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. The proposal is for council to make representation in respect of the mineral prospecting licence in opposition as per council's corporate position against gold mining. For Alderman Devaney, for or against?
Against, Karen.
Okay. Alderman Hussey?
Against.
Alderman Hussey, can you hear me?
Against.
Thank you. Alderman Kerrigan?
Against, Karen.
Thank you. Alderman Ramsey?
Against, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor John Boyle?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Angela Dobbins?
For, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Edwards?
For, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Rachel Ferguson?
For, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Christopher Jackson?
For, Karen.
Councillor Dan Kelly?
For, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Emma McGinley?
For, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Rory McHugh?
Or
Thank you. Councillor Maeve O'Neill?
For.
And Councillor Brian Tierney?
For.
Thank you. And members, I think that's 4 against and 10 for. Thank you, Chair. So that passes.
Okay, members, as you have heard, that proposal has passed, which brings us to our next proposal from Councillor Kelly. Is he in the chat box with you? Yeah. So I'm going to ask Karen to go through the same procedure again.
Thank you, Chair. And the proposal is for this council to write to the DFI Minister, calling her to review her decision not to advance revocation of permitted development rights for persons in receipt of a mineral prospecting licence, and bring all applications for mineral prospecting licences under the planning system.
Councillor Kelly, was that seconded? Councillor Jackson has indicated he's prepared to second it, so
Thank you.
just to keep things right.
Okay, so Alderman Devaney, for or against?
Against, Karen.
Okay. Alderman Hussey?
Against.
Alderman Kerrigan?
Against, Karen.
Alderman Ramsey?
Against, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor John Boyle?
For.
Councillor Angela Dobbins?
For, Karen.
Councillor Stephen Edwards?
For, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Rachel Ferguson?
For, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Christopher Jackson?
For.
Councillor Dan Kelly?
For, Karen.
Councillor Emma McGinley?
For, Karen.
Councillor Rory McHugh?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Maeve O'Neill?
For.
And Councillor Brian Tierney?
For.
Okay, so that's the same 10 for and 4 against. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, so that proposal passes, and that brings us on now to our next speaker who wishes to raise item 12, which is Councillor O'Neill, if I'm not mistaken.
Thanks, Chair. I think since our last A&R meeting, the Mavoy stakeholders group happened. So it was good to see that happen, but like it feels like we really haven't progressed very far in the last few years, given that again we were just presented a list of remediation options. So but it does feel like things are moving forward, and it's welcome to see that the criminal trial has a date for next month. I just wanted to raise the issue about the public inquiry, which that this council has called for and supported, and just the fact that Minister Putz took a unilateral decision not to proceed with this public inquiry into waste crime, and also the role the planning played in facilitating Mavoy. And if we look back in it was March 2014 where it was a unanimous decision by the Assembly for this public inquiry to go ahead. And unfortunately, Minister Putz has chosen to ignore that sentiment, and also to ignore the fact that the issue of illegal waste dumping is actually a cross-cutting issue in the Assembly, and controversial and significant, which is something that, according to the Assembly protocol, he and his own department is unable to just make that decision about abandoning the public inquiry himself. And I think, given the planning played a major part in facilitating waste crime, as per the Mills report, and the ongoing criminal case, I think in particular the Department for Infrastructure and the Department of Justice both should have a say on this public inquiry. So I know that the current Assembly is ready to wrap up. But I think we as a council, because we cannot forget Mavoy. Mavoy is still there. It's still a problem, and it still needs remediated. And we as a council should still call for a public inquiry. So I just wanted to propose that we write to those respective ministers, expressing our disappointment that the public inquiry has not gone ahead, and that we hope that this is prioritised in the next programme for government. Just give me a second to copy and paste this into the box.
Through Chair, just to remind members that we have, following previous ENR committees, written to both the First and Deputy First Ministers and the DFI Minister and the Justice Minister in relation to this issue. And members, we have received back correspondences in relation to that. I think pointing that this is a matter for the DERA Minister. So members, just to remind you of that when you're considering the proposal before you as well. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Neil, just bearing that in mind, you still wish to proceed,
Yeah,
essentially
Chair,
with
if I could
Karen.
just come back on that. It has recently been raised through the Minister's questions in the Assembly. Green Party MLA Rachel Woods has brought this question just in recent weeks to Minister Putz again, who asserts that this was a decision solely for DERA. I think this is an unresolved issue. I maybe should have proposed that we make a complaint against Minister Putz for breaking the ministerial code by abandoning this a public inquiry, but instead I'm offering again to write to express our disappointment, because I'm not satisfied with the responses, and I think we need to keep Mavoy on the agenda.
Okay, no problem, Councillor O'Neill. Is there a seconder for that proposal?
Chair, I'm happy to second it.
Councillor Ferguson seconded. Members, I don't see there being any issue with writing a letter to the Minister on this issue. And Alderman Hussey is looking to come in on this.
Chair, all this objecting to this and objecting to that and objecting to that, at the end of the day, what we really want is a solution to the problem. And I don't see that this proposal gives us a solution. public inquiries, they're grand, but at the end of the day, they don't put anything on the ground.
Okay, members, the proposal's been, sorry, I have Councillor Tierney indicated as well. Go ahead, Brian.
Chair, thank you. And just to say that we're happy to support the proposal, whilst people may think that public inquiries are grand, but they don't do anything. With a public inquiry into my boy, we can actually find out what went wrong and make sure that it doesn't happen again. And I think that's the most important thing that we should be looking for. So we have no issue whatsoever in continuing our ongoing position to support the calls for a public inquiry into what happened at my boy. Thank you.
Members, does anybody wish to object to the proposal? Because if they're not, then obviously have to put it to the vote.
Abstain, Chair.
Okay, we'll note then Councillor Hussey's abstention and take it that everyone else is happy enough to write the letter based on the proposal in the box that has been proposed and seconded. So members, unless there's any other item anybody wishes to raise under items for information. Alderman Devaney, item 13.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me, and it's just for clarification. I do take on board the recommendation here, but just in around the booking system, we talk about the Eglinton and Glendermot site. I know Conor has said that they are in the process of looking for other sites. Have there been any indications, Conor, that there is a positive story at the end? Or how does that process work? Or how do we let people know that we are looking for a new site? Just wondering how that process works, Conor.
Yep, Chair, happy to take that. If I deal with Glendermot first, we have identified a site not too far away in council ownership, and we're progressing with the due diligence on that at the moment. They're providing there are there's nothing in that prevents us from taking forward that development. We bring a report to members outlining the location and the plans to develop that facility, and it would be on a scale similar to Pennyburn and a similar layout. So we know that will be an improvement for the members in that area. Eglinton members will know we had identified sites previously, and we're still in discussion on one of those sites. And again, should that move forward, we'll bring a report into committee. And again, all of that will happen in tandem with the redevelopment of the Killen site that, again, we are actively progressing at this time.
Thank you, Conor, for that update.
A couple of other indicated speakers here. I have Councillor Jackson and Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Conor, for that. Firstly, I want to welcome the report and look forward to a meeting of the Recycling Centre Working Group. It seems like it's been a wee while since we've met, but there was sort of quite a lot of very important business that was being discussed at that working group, just in relation to an alternative site for the Glendermot Recycling Centre. And I'm not going to disclose the potential location here, but it's probably the worst kept secret across the watershed. And one of the concerning things is that the last people that seem to be finding out about the potential site are the local residents. And so as part of that sort of feasibility study or work that the council is undertaking, will the views of local residents be taken into consideration as part of that work? Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, Chair, the simple answer is yes, and members will know from previous projects where we had thought we had identified centres in different locations right across the city and district where there have been local and vocal opposition to that. We've always taken that on board, and ultimately members have raised that, and I don't think that as an officer group we would bring in a recommendation to develop something that the local community weren't in support of. So, but of course all of that will happen.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Connor, for the report. Obviously, I'm looking forward to the next meeting to kind of the working group to get into more detail. But Connor, I know when the report is saying that all COVID measures now have been removed on sites, but subsequently the Eglinton and Glendermot ones are staying with the booking system because of health and safety requirements. Before, when we are challenged on this, we were able to clearly say due to COVID measures. I'm just wondering if we could have a little bit more clarity around. I know that there's access to other premises and stuff. Is it just like a health and is it been a risk assessment or just a clear line of why we're still in the booking system even though the COVID measures now have been removed? I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, happy to explain for both sites. Both sites are shared areas. There are other businesses operating in the area. Back at the beginning of the pandemic, the HSE conducted inspections of all sites. And whilst they had COVID concerns about all sites and those were addressed, they also had additional concerns about those two sites in that there are shared activities and the number of vehicle movements within and across those two sites. So with regards to that, they've asked for very specific traffic management arrangements and that where the booking systems come in. And in their view, those sites can't operate without those booking systems being in place because simply their view is it's not safe. As an organisation, we have a responsibility to take on board the advice of HSE and we have done that, and that's reflected in the booking systems. I appreciate, and I've said this, I understand the frustrations of local people. We know it's not ideal, and we're actively working to address the issues on both sides by relocating them. And hopefully, we hope that we have a positive outcome in terms of Glendermot, and that's just again, subject to what I'd said previously in relation to community consultation and members being content that we take forward a development in the alternative location, and the same is true in Eglinton. And some of the members will know from previous discussions in Eglinton we had a site identified, and again there was residents' opposition to it, and subsequently that site was dropped from our investigations. We have one other site that we're progressing, but it's if you want, it's a potential development site in terms of other opportunities, and that is something we're having to work through with the vendor at this point in time.
Okay, thank you for that, Connor. Members, there's no other indicated speaker on their items for information. Conscious that the time is 6:30 and we're going to go on to confidential business now. Our members, do they wish to take a quick comfort break, or are they happy to motor on with our last 3 remaining items?
Motor on.
Motor on.
Agree.
Yeah, no problem. Members, could I get a proposer and seconder to go on to confidential then?
Or seconded, Alderman Devaney.
It was Councillor Tierney, I think, was first on there, and Councillor Devaney. And IT will let us know when